What are you learning so far from just these early headlines on this testimony?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you think about the experience that we've seen with Supreme Court justices when they go in front of the Senate committee for their hearings, right? And what are they looking to do? They're looking to get in and out without creating a lot of controversial news headlines. And I think it's kind of the same thing for Governor Powell. I mean, I think he feels like probably, his nomination should be relatively easy, but he's certainly not looking to say anything or do anything that's going to add any headaches to that process. And certainly this testimony, I think, is well within the framework of what you would expect given that.
And Stephen, I appreciate you saying, I think that a lot of what we're seeing so far in this 2.5 pages that he'll repeat live tomorrow before the Senate Banking Committee for that nomination hearing. He is going to preserve the independence of the Fed. He's going to follow in Fed traditions. Am I being overly nervous for Jay Powell here? Seems to me that if he comes in and inflation isn't rising, and as he takes over as the Fed chair, and it's now his turn to really look and guide policy. Everyone's assuming that he's Janet Yellen 2.0. What if he says, I'm kind of with the camp that's concerned about the flat yield curve. Maybe we should slow down a little bit on rate hikes. Everyone's going to say it's because he's a Republican. They're going to say Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin whispered in his ear. Knowing what I know of Jay Powell, I think that's unfair. But it seems to me it could put him in kind of a difficult position, especially if he decides inflation's too weak, the economy's not strong enough, and he doesn't want to do 3 rate hikes next year.
Yeah, I mean, that is always a concern, and there's always talk about that. In the past, there's been, for example, Greenspan, when he came in, was thought to be very political. And of course, his reputation kind of definitely changed from there. But I think that's a legitimate fear for him. I mean, obviously he comes in at a time when things could go in a number of different ways. What I will say is I think he's going to be someone, because he's not a PhD economist and not someone with doctrinary economic views, my guess is that one of the main characteristics of his term as chair is going to be that he's going to be a consensus builder and someone who looks to kind of gather the votes around the table and maybe coalesce a decision. But I don't think he's going to be driving the boat quite as forcefully as perhaps a Greenspan or a Bernanke or even a Yellen. So in that sense, and if he does in fact go that direction, it becomes a little more difficult to criticize him as being political or driving the process to help the president, because he's going to have, I think, the bulk of the committee behind him and supporting his decision and also signing on to what it is that the Fed decides to do.